Tonight, we're talking about issues. We're calling this taking stock. And when Barack, Muluka, and Dr. PLO Lumumba show up, you know it's all about taking stock. Lots to talk about tonight. From Deputy IG Koinange, was she pushed? Did she jump? What's going on? Teacher strike. What is it, day 13 or something? Ruto versus Ruto. The ICC. How do you take back recanted testimony? So much to talk about. And of course, our award-winning athletes, we have to keep talking about those guys because they are champions in any light, any way you look at it. But first, as I introduce my gentleman, Barack Muluka, as I said earlier on, his Twitter handle is @BarackM. Dr. PLO is still in analog land. But we'll get him there one of these days. He's getting there.
Yeah.
Slowly but surely. Good to see you, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Best political tag team on TV. Thanks for making it.
Thank you.
I know you're busy. You're crisscrossing the continent, helping fight corruption.
Among other things.
Speaking of corruption, gentlemen, when did wheelbarrows start costing 100,000 shillings? Dr. PLO, please help me out.
You know, Jeff, Kenya is a theater of the absurd. You know, I do not know, when you are young, we used to have something called Hekaya za Bunwasi. And Bunwasi had this penchant for having sufurias which would give birth. I've never heard of a wheelbarrow that cost that much money.
Yeah.
The tragedy, however, is that the individual who is at the very center of it wants to justify
the price.
The price.
Yes.
He says this is a good thing.
Yeah.
They are stainless steel wheelbarrows. It is a tragedy, and the tragedy is that we are a touch and go country, and nothing will happen. We touch and go. We touch and go. We'll forget about the wheelbarrow, think of another thing, sugar, Waiguru, and other things, and the country is hurtling towards its destruction. And remember that when a country is hurtling towards its destruction, even when God reasons with it, it thinks God mad. Hence the wheelbarrow saga. But it's from Barack Muluka that I would want to hear what he thinks about this golden wheelbarrow.
Because it's close to where he's from.
Close to Emmanuel.
Perhaps that is what happened. That's a good contribution from Bungoma. You know, traditionally the wheelbarrow is an apparatus that can work for you only when you push it. Otherwise, it doesn't do anything. But from what I've seen on social media, this seems to be a wheelbarrow that can actually lift you. You can load there your stuff, paraphernalia. Yeah. It's got an engine, and when you fire, it storms off.
Perhaps it is a helibarrow.
So it's a helibarrow.
but PLO is right when he says, Barack, he says, we'll laugh at this,
on a more serious note.
Yeah.
When this malady has taken charge of you, you lose all sense of proportion. That you think you could justify just about anything. You steal without knowing that the owner is going to catch up with you. I mean, if you want to steal with a modicum of intelligence. In fact, we are offended here, not so much even that someone has stolen, but because someone thinks that we are so stupid.
The rest of us.
The rest of us, yes. That we have got cold porridge between our ears.
It's such a shame.
You know, we can laugh about it because of its comic value, but as Barack rightly says, it is a tragedy that this is happening, and that is simply a metaphor for the kind of theft that is going on across the country. I know a place where a pit latrine has cost 3 million Kenya shillings. You and me know that a pit latrine will cost no more than 150,000 at the very worst, and nothing will happen, Jeff. Nothing will happen, and this individual will present himself for an electoral office and he will be elected. This individual will receive a national order of the Grand Warrior. This individual will be celebrated at some churches. This individual is a village hero. And we are talking about this at a time when we know that this country is bleeding from every corner. We know that the professionals are not being paid, the teachers are crying, the medical profession is crying, and the business that is new and lucrative in town is wheelbarrows, stainless wheelbarrows.
Shame on us. Shame on us.
Indeed.
Speaking of teachers' strike, gentlemen, I don't know about you, but I have an 8-year-old. And this is the time they're opening school. But they can't because these people are on strike because they want more money. Is it that simple, or what is it? I'm disgusted that my child cannot go to school because he has no one to teach him.
Yes, Jeff, what you haven't told us is who you are disgusted with. Is it the teacher or is it the paymaster? Because the teachers asked for a pay rise of 300%. And the paymaster said, no, we cannot afford 300%. Yeah. We can afford somewhere between 50 and 60%. And the teachers contested that. The paymaster went to court, and he was listened to. The teachers were listened to, and the court said, okay, 50 to 60%. Then the paymaster turns court, and he says, no, we can't afford 50 to 60%. And the same paymaster goes to the next court and to the next court, and he's told, go and pay 50 to 60%. When he was saying he was going to pay 50 to 60%, was he hoodwinking the teachers? Was he hoodwinking the nation? I think government should hold itself accountable for the decisions it makes. You cannot make a promissory note even to your domestic detail, and you reach an agreement. At the end of the month, you tell them that I cannot afford that, I don't have the money. This self-same government every so often defines the minimum pay wage, the wage for everybody in the country, including for the people whom you have employed at your home. They don't ask you whether you can afford, whether you have the money or not. Once it's been agreed upon, you pay.
Jeff, I support the teachers. You know, this has been going on since 1997. You remember Adea Dongo, you remember this has been a baton.
Francis Nganga, David Osiani.
And the government has repeatedly said we are going to pay teachers. What does a teacher earn? A lowest paid teacher earns something in the neighborhood of 10,000, a principal of a school something in the neighborhood of 126,000, an MCA earns $500,000 on average salary plus allowances. We have abused the teachers so much, and in this particular situation, the judgment was actually in favor of the TSC. They said we can pay 50%, and the government, the court in its wisdom said, pay it. You cannot have a situation where the mother profession, teaching is the mother profession. And we must, in the nature of things now as a country, and this in civilized world, this is an issue where there should be a bipartisan approach. The opposition and the government should sit and ask. In fact, it is the kind of thing that requires the President of the Republic of Kenya to hold an emergency cabinet meeting and see what we can adjust in our budget and negotiate. And I look forward to the day when my good friend and former colleague Professor Koinange will come down and said, come and let us reason together. Let us ask ourselves what we can do to obey the court, because a government cannot be seen to disobey the court orders. I hold the view that the teachers have a right to be remunerated, and to be remunerated well, because they prepare the next generation. We cannot do what we are doing to our teachers.
Speaking of next generation, PLO, we're raising a nation of idiots. They'll never know Greek mythology and Shakespeare like you guys, like you are all taught. They'll never know.
I read something on Twitter. A friend of mine said that they...
I'm sorry, you read Twitter now?
Yes, something. Somebody showed me something on Twitter. and he said that a teacher asked, what kind of coffee do you export? And the one says it's Kofi Annan and Kofi Olomide, and he says that is perfect. And the joke is that the teachers are confirming it is Kofi Olomide and Kofi Annan, simply to ensure that they fail the examination. And we can laugh about it. It's a way of telling us what is the matter. But I hold the view that a country that does not prepare her young men and women for the next generation and for the future is a country that is hurtling towards destruction. And the sooner the government does something about the teachers, the safer this country is.
No doubt. Switching gears, gentlemen, because there's so much to discuss tonight. Former Deputy Inspector General of Police Barack Muluka. What was that about? Kaindi is kind of pushed aside. She's given an ambassadorship to somewhere.
To no country.
Yes, she's being parachuted out of vigilance house. And I think it's basically because somebody has got certain designs which can only be interpreted as dark designs, perhaps. Because you don't wake up one morning and you decide that the Deputy Inspector General should move. There must be a big story behind all these happenings. And we have heard about procurement as usual. We have said previously that government in this country, in Africa, it seems to be about finance, audit and procurement. And that if you cover yourself in those three areas, you can raid the country as coffers are completely clean and nothing happens to you. So here is Kainde first. She's a woman. And you remove her, you put their man in acting capacity. The law, both the National Police Service Act and the Constitution is very clear about the ratios and proportion in those portfolios. I expected that if indeed the time had come for her to move on, the replacement would be a woman. We are being told there's no woman who is adequately qualified and competent to step in those shoes. And I have asked and ask again, what kind of government does not have a succession plan, especially in cadres of sensitivity of this kind, that it cannot be done that way. Nkaiseri and good Johnson Kavuludi cannot stand before a sober crowd of people and tell us, looking us straight in the eye, that there's no woman who is competent to get there. And Kainde, of course, herself has told us that my time has not yet come. I still have another 3 years. So this is scandalous. And it looks
Barak,
like
I hear Barak. You know, the question that I ask myself, why must we humiliate public officials when they have served this country so well? If Madam Kainde is not good enough to continue to serve in the capacity of Deputy Inspector General, why and how is she good enough to be an ambassador for this country, to represent our country? There is something that is not being said. There is a subtext to this. And what we must learn to do as a country, particularly when we are dealing with the disciplined forces, I'm quite certain that it demoralizes members of the disciplined forces, because it telegraphs to them that this is how one day
you're going to be
removed. And in Kiswahili we say, ukiona mwenzako akinyolewa, kichwa chako kitie maji. And the net effect is that we are demoralizing our police force at a time when we are threatened by terrorism, at a time when this country needs all hands on deck. My own view is, leadership and greatness requires that when you make a mistake, you acknowledge the mistake. I believe that Madam Kainde should be allowed to exit the force when the time does come, but in an orderly, in a disciplined manner, in a civilized manner, not in this gung-ho and primitive manner. It
Additional to that, yes, that you are telling people in the diplomatic service that actually this is the dumping ground. That when we think that someone is no longer useful, we look for the dumping ground, and that is the dustbin that we cast you in. Yes. What message are you sending the people in the diplomatic service?
Again, like PLO said, demoralizing.
Absolutely.
Demoralizing. Absolutely. Gentlemen, I want to take a break, come back, talk about, switch gears again, talk about the ICC. Surprising statements from The Hague using recanted testimony. What does this say for Deputy President William Ruto? Think about that. And also, there's another Ruto who's challenging the other Ruto. It's very confusing in the rift. Yes. Ruto versus Ruto.
Rutoisic.
Rutoisic. It's Greek mythology to me, Barak.
Well, it's a battle of the titans. Titanic.
Succession in the judiciary. Deputy CJ,
yes,
on our way out.
Wave must push wave for the sea to be renewed.
Ooh. Is Willie Mutunga on his way out?
In the fullness of time.
In the fullness of time. Speaking of time to take a commercial break. Keep tweeting at Barack M, at Koinange Jeff, the hashtag we're using tonight, taking stock. We are indeed taking stock of the state of the nation. And I have with me here the absolute best political tag team on TV, Dr. PLO Lumumba, Barack Muluka. JKL takes a break. We'll be back in a moment.